The second law of thermodynamics dictates that in any closed system, entropy, or chaos, must always increase. It is a physical certainty. Apply this to the sterile, high-budget vacuum of a Hollywood film set, and you realize that most actors are trained to be closed systems. They arrive with memorized lines, hit their tape marks on the floor, and perform the same emotional arc until the director is satisfied. It is convenient. It is safe. It is also a lie. Robin Williams was the biological manifestation of entropy. He was the variable that the system couldn't calculate. When he stepped onto a stage, the heat increased, the script dissolved, and the professional masks of his co-stars didn't just slip, they shattered. This wasn't just comedy. It was an assault on the curated convenience of modern performance. The reality is that we have become addicted to the predictable, but Robin forced his peers into the raw, terrifying now. Look at the 1978 set of Mork and Mindy. The cameras are heavy, whirring blocks of metal. The lights are blinding. Pam Dauber stands there, expecting a sitcom. Instead, she gets a man who is literally vibrating, jumping from a Shakespearean soliloquy to a vacuum cleaner impression in the span of a single breath. Her eyes aren't just wide for the camera, she is physically trying to track a human hurricane. She breaks. She laughs when she shouldn't.
I'm talking Blackport, you know
The
what I mean?
script is dead on the floor. This is where the slippery slope begins. Once you allow a single spark of unscripted reality into the frame, the entire structure of the production begins to slide into an abyss of beautiful, unmanageable chaos. Every time an actor broke on stage with Robin, a bit of the curated Hollywood lie withered away. You should subscribe to Build the Library of Forbidden Ideas, because we're digging up the truths the industry spent decades trying to edit out. Zoom out for a moment and look at the sheer physical toll this took on his victims. During the filming of The Birdcage, Nathan Lane wasn't just acting opposite a comedian, he was trapped in a room with a nuclear reactor. In the scene where Robin slips on the kitchen floor, that wasn't a stunt. It was a chaotic accident.
He's just a baby. He's too young. He'll ruin his life.
Listen, we've been through all that, all right? Bottom line is he's getting married no matter what we say, so the less said.
That sarcastic, contemptuous tone that means you know everything because you're a man and I know nothing.
You is rewriting the laws of human interaction. Robin didn't just share a stage. He colonized it. He forced actors like Robert De Niro, the titan of method acting, to abandon his decades of discipline during Awakenings. De Niro, a man who usually treats a script like holy scripture, found himself giggling like a schoolboy because he couldn't handle the sheer density of Robin's presence. Subscribe to leave your mark in this archive of human folly, because what we're witnessing is the total collapse of professional order. This was the atrophy of the soul in action, the moment where the convenience of the script was replaced by the crushing weight of a genius who couldn't be contained. The reality of this creative hijacking is far more expensive than the industry wants you to believe. Look closely at the frame in Good Will Hunting during the scene in the psychiatrist's office.
Short, fat, insecure, middle-aged thing.
Now, if this is a rumor, if it's true.
My name to Norman, so I
Nocturnal flatulence, a story that exists nowhere in the screenplay. Now, look at the camera itself. It wobbles. It's a subtle, jagged vibration. That is the physical manifestation of a professional cinematographer losing his battle with gravity. He was laughing so hard he couldn't hold the heavy Panaflex camera steady. In any other production, that's a ruined take. It's a waste of expensive 35mm film stock. But in the orbit of Robin Williams, the rules of professional conduct were routinely incinerated. This is the slippery slope in its most visceral form. The moment you allow the genius to breathe, you lose control of the room, the budget, and the very air in the lungs of your cast. You there, sitting comfortably behind your screen, don't lie to yourself and call this magic. For a lighting technician, this was a logistical insurgency. Every time Robin decided to lunge across a room or mimic a stroke victim, he moved out of his mark. In the world of high-end cinema, actors are expected to stand on specific pieces of tape so the lights hit their eyes just right. Robin treated those marks like mild suggestions from a distant relative. The result was a crew in constant, frantic motion, dragging heavy cables and repositioning massive reflectors just to keep up with a man who refused to be pinned down. The notion that a film set is a place of clockwork precision is a pleasant fantasy designed to protect the studio's ego. The truth is that filming with Robin was an exercise in damage control. Take a step back and consider the physical evolution of the medium itself. During the filming of Mork and Mindy, the standard television setup was 3 cameras. It was a rigid, predictable geometry. But Robin moved too fast. He would leap from a couch to a bookshelf before the camera operators could even adjust their focus. The solution wasn't to tell Robin to slow down. The industry didn't have the courage for that. Instead, they literally changed the architecture of the sitcom. They added a 4th camera, a roving unit, specifically tasked with following his unpredictable, jagged trajectory. It was a technological surrender. The machine had to be rebuilt because the human wouldn't fit into the gears. This wasn't progress. It was a desperate adaptation to a force of nature that threatened to break the very equipment used to capture it. The psychological toll on his directors was even more profound. Imagine being Chris Columbus on the set of Mrs. Doubtfire. You have a script, you have a schedule, you have a budget. But then Robin enters the recording booth or the kitchen set, and suddenly, the script is just a pile of dead trees. Columbus famously had to run 3 cameras simultaneously for every single scene, capturing hours upon hours of improvised gold that would never make it into the final cut. Do you understand the sheer volume of discarded reality left on the cutting room floor? We are talking about mountains of silver halide, millions of dollars in processing costs, and weeks of an editor's life spent trying to stitch together a coherent narrative from the beautiful wreckage of Robin's mind. Subscribe to this channel right now to secure your access to the dark mechanics of the industry, because we are the only ones willing to count the cost of the legends you worship. Look at the sweat on the brow of the animators for Aladdin. They didn't just draw a genie. They tried to rotoscope a lightning bolt. Eric Goldberg, the lead animator, described the process as a form of creative exhaustion.
Do you have a TV?
Robin would walk into a recording booth with a glass of water and a list of ideas, and he would emerge hours later, leaving behind 16 hours of improvised dialogue for a character that only had 20 minutes of screen time. The animators weren't just artists anymore. They were forensic investigators, sifted through thousands of jokes to find the ones that wouldn't get the studio sued. This is the weight of unmanaged brilliance. It forces everyone around it to work 3 times as hard just to maintain the illusion of order. When you see the blooper reels where actors are breaking character and falling apart, you're seeing the total collapse of a multi-million-dollar structure. In Patch Adams, the real doctors on set weren't just extras. They were stunned observers of a man who could turn a pediatric ward into a riot within seconds. The tension in those rooms was palpable. You have a director screaming, "Cut," but Robin doesn't stop. He can't stop. The momentum of his persona is a physical entity with its own inertia. He would keep going until the film ran out, until the lights grew hot enough to burn the gel filters, until the crew was physically unable to stand. The tragedy of The Slippery Slope is that once you've tasted that level of raw, unscripted truth, the regular script feels like a prison. Actors who worked with him often spoke of a comedic hangover. After weeks of being subjected to his high-frequency output, returning to a standard procedural drama felt like moving in slow motion underwater. He didn't just ruin the take, he ruined the craft for everyone else. He made the carefully constructed lies of Hollywood look pathetic. This was the ultimate disruption. He proved that the most expensive part of a movie, the script, was often the least valuable thing on the set. And that is a truth the studios have spent decades trying to suppress. They want you to believe in the system. They want you to believe the director is in charge. But the footage doesn't lie. The shaking cameras, the broken actors, and the exhausted crews all point to a single, undeniable reality. For a few decades, the inmates didn't just run the asylum, they blew up the walls and danced in the debris. The Hollywood machine didn't just survive the era of unmanaged brilliance, it developed a biological immune response to it. Look at the modern film set. It has become a sterile, green-walled vacuum where every variable is pre-calculated by a risk assessment algorithm months before a camera ever rolls. The sweat you see on a protagonist's brow is now sprayed on from a pressurized bottle with surgical precision. The jokes are vetted by focus groups to ensure maximum demographic penetration, and actors frequently deliver their lines to a piece of colored tape on a tripod because their co-star was busy filming a different franchise in a different hemisphere. This is the peak of the slippery slope. We gave an inch to the idea of professional efficiency, and we fell a mile into a valley of spiritual atrophy. We traded the dangerous, unpredictable electricity of a man like Robin Williams for the safe, rechargeable batteries of a multimedia cinematic universe. The truth is that we have become a culture of cowards who prefer the convenience of a predictable lie over the terrifying, heavy weight of an unscripted reality. You can see it in the vacant eyes of the performers today. They aren't chasing the lightning anymore. They are hitting their marks and waiting for the direct deposit. Subscribe only if you have the stomach to watch until the end of this systemic collapse, because we are documenting the final moments of an era where art was allowed to be a threat to the budget. We have entered a phase where the human soul is viewed as an inefficiency to be ironed out by post-production. When you go back and watch that old grainy footage of a man losing his mind for the sake of a laugh, the shaking cameras aren't a technical mistake. They are the physical tremors of a world that couldn't contain the raw truth of the moment. Rot underneath the surface. The reality of what we've lost is a truth that makes people uncomfortable because it demands they acknowledge their own complacency. No one will believe you when you tell them this. Subscribe to find others who do. Most would rather believe that the progress of technology is a gift, rather than a meticulously designed cage intended to keep the chaotic spirit of real art from ever disrupting the quarterly earnings report again. The light has finally faded from the studio floor, replaced by the cold blue flicker of a server rack. The game is over, the board is locked, and the players have been replaced by the very systems they once tried to subvert. Move on. Step inside the Burbank studios today and you will notice a haunting lack of friction. The smell of sawdust and the frantic, caffeinated energy of a crew racing against the setting sun have been replaced by the hum of industrial air conditioning and the sterile glow of LED walls. This is the volume, a massive, curved screen that renders reality in real time so that the actors never have to step foot in a real desert or feel the bite of actual wind. It is technically perfect and spiritually hollow. We began by using computers to remove the wires from a stuntman's harness, a reasonable request for safety and immersion. But the slope was greased with the oil of efficiency. From removing wires, we moved to removing backgrounds. From removing backgrounds, we moved to replacing faces. Now we are replacing the very unpredictability of the human spirit with algorithmic certainty. The truth is that the industry has developed a terminal allergy to the happy accident. In the old world, a stray dog running through a shot or a lead actor's voice cracking with genuine unscripted exhaustion could turn a mediocre scene into a masterpiece. Today, that is a data point to be corrected. We have engineered a world where the risk of failure has been eliminated, and in doing so, we have strangled the possibility of transcendence. You are watching a slow-motion car crash of the collective imagination, where every frame is focus grouped to ensure it never challenges a single soul. This is a logistical impossibility for true art to survive. Real creativity requires the threat of a total mess, but the corporate masters of the modern age demand a product that can be predicted with the same accuracy as a quarterly tax return. They have mapped the human dopamine response and built a pipeline that bypasses the heart entirely to plug directly into the lizard brain. Most people are content to float in this warm, digital bath of recycled tropes and sanitized emotions. never realizing that their capacity for genuine awe is shrinking every time they hit play. This transition from the organic to the synthetic was never about improving the story. It was about controlling the cost of the soul. Subscribe to see how deep the rabbit hole really goes, because the architecture of your boredom has been meticulously planned by people who view your attention as a harvestable resource rather than a human gift. Look at the way actors are now scanned into databases before they even speak their first line. Their likenesses are archived as digital puppets, ready to be manipulated long after their physical bodies have failed. It is the ultimate commodification of the self. We are witnessing the final victory of the spreadsheet over the script. Every beat, every color palette, and every emotional crescendo is now dictated by sentiment analysis software that tells